We don't know where Hannah is. That's a good time for you. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks. We're here today to talk about crowdfunding, which is, and I named the panel Viewers Like You because I wanted to point out, even though we don't have anyone from PBS here, that this isn't really that new of a thing. We think of it as a very new thing, but really, it goes way beyond PBS even, you know, to the Medicis and, I guess that wasn't crowdfunding, so that's patronage. You know, it's been really interesting to watch. I'm going to give a little intro here of my own. It's been really interesting to watch mainstream media get into online video and realize that one of the most innovative and interesting companies, in my opinion, is PBS. Because they're like a quasi-government agency. You wouldn't consider them to be like fast-moving, nimble. But it turns out that they just create the kind of content that is better structured for the internet, which is content that people really love, not content that people will watch in their spare time because they're bored. And that's because PBS doesn't need lots of people to watch. They need a certain number of people to really want the thing to exist. Ideally people who have money, but a certain number of people. Which is why like classical music is on the PBS station because rich people listen to it and they want it to be on the radio, so they pay for that basically. And when they ask,
for that privilege.
They get a tote bag and they're like, oh god, I got another tote bag. So that's crowdfunding in a nutshell.
I actually got a hummingbird DVD for my PBS.
Yeah, you got a hummingbird? That sounds nice.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Viewers Like You.
Yeah.
God, I got another tote bag.
And on this panel, I'll introduce our panelists now that I've done my spiel about how great PBS is and how, you know, online, like I think a lot of the opportunity afforded to us on online video is to make more content like that. So instead of just content that people like House Hunters International, where we're like, yes, I will watch this because it is on television and I'm currently eating macaroni. That's my evenings anyway. There's just a lot more opportunity to create more content that people really love. I think that the economic model of crowdfunding is really important to that, and so I think like not only is this a great way to fund content, but it also creates more content like that. So on the panel, starting to my left, we have Jack Conti, who is the founder of Patreon, half of Pamplemousse. Patreon just raised $15 million.
Neither do I.
You're just gonna buy cars.
Yeah, cars and helicopters.
You want to make a music video
Learjets
entirely with Lamborghinis.
Yeah. I'm just gonna make it rain.
Excellent. Destin from Smarter Every Day, who has a really compelling, interesting YouTube channel.
What do? I don't know.
Yeah, you shoot guns at things as far as I can tell.
Sometimes.
And experiment with poop.
chicken head videos.
And Destin has used both Subbable, which is my crowdfunding platform, and Patreon. And then on the far, we are at odds, man. We're just heading for the throats. My favorite tech startup competition is the one between Subbable and Patreon, because we're like, so are you like doing good things for the community? Yeah, okay, cool. Let's hang out, have drinks. Do you want to like be on each other's advisory boards? And then on the down on the end we have Nate Olson, who works with Frederator and was instrumental in their Bee and Puppy Cat Kickstarter which raised like more than $1 million.
Oh, I wish it was $900,000.
Oh, I rounded. Well, that's just depressing. Really, $900,000.
We were just devastated.
It's like getting the silver medal in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, except instead of having a silver medal, you have $900,000.
To make, you know, a whole TV series, which were really awesome. We also, we have, Frederator has a network of animation channels, our own multi-channel network on YouTube, and it's up to about 450 channels, and a lot of our creators in that network use Patreon, use other crowdsourcing, you know, to fund their efforts.
Great. Let me turn my camera over. So
Oh, hi, Hannah.
Oh, Hannah's here.
Better late than never.
No, it's okay. I'll just be quiet. That'll be my punishment. That'll be my penance for being late.
You're more important than me. You use that.
That is not true. We all have our brief blips on this earth and are equally important.
And everyone, this is Hannah Hart.
Hi.
She gets drunk in kitchens, as far as I can tell. I don't know what her thing is. Yeah, she has a very popular comedy slash cooking, but really it's not, because I've eaten her food. and also kickstarted was it Kickstarter?
Indie Jojo.
Indie Jojo'd a tour across America, which had even had charity components, and you made a documentary film out of it, and boy, I think you spent more money than you made.
Yes. I made negative numbers. But it was a great learning experience, which we'll learn about here today.
I've also done Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns. I should just start a Patreon page. I can have everything. And so I can talk a little bit about the difference between those things as well. So, first of all, is it terrifying? Do you think that you are going to cause some kind of exodus of your content? Like, I felt that way the first time I did it, and I felt that way the second time I did it, and the third time I did it, and every time it was popular, but I still felt like people were, oh my God, what are people doing? It's the Patreon. Well, that's what they're spending their $50 million.
You wouldn't believe how expensive that spandex suit is.
It's weird to ask for money. So, why is it weird? How do you get over it? And is it something you need to get over?
Go ahead.
You can go first.
Okay, so yes, it's weird to ask for money, especially if you feel like you have been blessed with this really awesome life and you're doing really cool things that other people don't get to do. And then you go on top of that and you say, can you please give me money so I can do this more? That feels really weird, at least for me. I don't know, does it feel weird for you guys? But it's really nice to be able to do that because you feel like you're adding value. But
Yeah. I would say that the hardest part about asking for money for me personally, when I did with Palo Alto, was just kind of what you're alluding to there, which is that I just feel so grateful and so blessed for the life that, you know, this industry has given me, that to ask for money seems so like garish, like, oh, I want to make more things, like, please give me money so I can do that. But then it's absolutely necessary, and I kind of feel like it'd be better to have an honest transaction of money than trying to have like some subversive advertising to lead to funding and compromise the message.
Frederator is a corporation, and we've had some success raising money from TV channels and these kinds of things. And so, but actually Frederator asks for money all of the time. You know, we're always, the difference was with the Being Puppy Cat Kickstarter was we went right to the fans rather than going to a corporation.
Yeah. All the time?
Yeah. No, but it's, you know, it's a constant, I think for us, our biggest concern when we were going to our fans was making sure that the message was clear about what we were trying to do and why we were doing it. You know, where for Being Puppy Cat, which was a short film by a very talented artist named Natasha Allegri, it was, we looked at all the options and we could have taken it to television, but it would have taken years to be developed into television. It would have compromised her vision. And Kickstarter, when we were looking at it, was an amazing way to engage an audience and raise the funds to make the show in the shortest amount of time and preserve her vision. But you know, my boss, Fred Seibert, he literally goes and he asks for money all of the time. Usually, though, it's from wealthy people sitting in offices.
Which feels nice. To not ask, the consumers of the content,
Yeah.
Because we have a community, I guess. Go ahead.
Unless you are, let's say, and this is going to be a really sweeping statement, but honestly, like as a woman in entertainment, when you go and ask people for money, they're like, can we make it like sexier, or opposite, let's make it like really female empowered. And it's like, can we just not even address, like, my content doesn't come with a gender bias. Like, I just want to make things. So it is hard, especially, and also, Fred has built up this career. I don't know if you guys know, but Fred Seibert is this massive, media mogul genius guy who's built up this reputation, this career for over 20 years. Someone more similar to my position or position reflected here. The second you're asking for money, it's like, well, of course you're asking me for money. Everybody's asking me for money, da 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 da, which is why I was so happy to go to the audience. But I honestly, I don't know if I will ask again. I would more probably do something like Patreon. Sorry.
I have to say though, I don't think, maybe like right now in 2014, probably more so in 2010, it's weird to ask for money, but like that's how it's always been. Like what's more weird is like recording your art and making a product out of it and then selling that product to a person. Like that's only been around for 100 years. Like that's the weird thing. Patronage, like asking for money and getting art to make, like, that's been done for thousands of years, and it's only because this last 100 years that we've been in where we feel like, oh, it's weird to ask for money. I'd rather put my art on a thing and sell it to a person. Like, and now that art is free and on the web.
I mean, it's even weirder to say I'm gonna make my art and then I'm gonna put an advertisement before it to sell some other thing.
That's so weird.
Whoa, you're right. It is weird. Oh my God.
Like, hey, I make stuff. Do you want to pay me for that? That's not weird. Like, that makes so much sense.
Do you want this thing to exist?
Yeah.
Well, it costs money.
We'll get back to it.
Yeah, well, I think that there's something to avoid, which I've seen a lot of people do, which is you feel awkward about asking for money, and so you're like, well, so if you pay $20, then you get a free poster and a T-shirt and a button pack, and I'm like, well, I've done the math. You've made less money than just selling a T-shirt.
Yeah.
You could have just sold a T-shirt, and like this is a fine way to sell T-shirts. If this is a more effective way to sell T-shirts, which it kind of is. A Kickstarter for some people is just like a really effective pre-order system. But yeah, I watch and I like so people offer so many things, and they end up like working for a year to fulfill all their perks for their $20,000 Kickstarter campaign, which they made $5,000 off of, and I'm like, sorry, I have lots of VidCon things happening.
What con?
You have a lot, like, yeah, you now have made $5,000 for a year of work.
Right.
It's not ideal.
Also, I think that, because this is about crowdfunding in 2014, right? That's like, that's what this panel is about. But I also think that like, as other people want to become involved in the space and work with creators that are either expanding off platform or expanding off their channels, you have this like shilling attitude too, which is like, okay guys, start talking about it now so we can get all the pre-orders in, and then you're also trying to like sell the things you're creating, and then you're also trying to distribute stuff that people wanted. Like for instance, we at DHTVA and myself, we launched a carrot onesie, which I'm really excited about giving to the audience. Like, look, we did it. We did a carrot onesie because people wanted it. But also, like, I'm also selling a book right now that I'm getting a lot of pressure to like really boost your pre-orders, and it's just like all this pressure. So you have to effectively create your content still while also being a commercial for your brand, and that sucks. So bad.
Yeah. Will you pull up a picture of the carrot onesie?
Yeah.
Can you do that, Hank, over there?
Right. Oh, can I make this?
Hank is hesitating because he's in it.
Don't. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just go look it up. Go look up the carrot onesie. It's really spectacular.
It's really good. Hank looks really good. He's clearly in an office working very hard, lounging in his
crash course.
There's a corgi.
There's a corgi, yeah.
You want to
This computer is like literally running Windows 95.
That's okay. I'll just Instagram it right now. Don't worry.
So what about digital perks. Did you do any kind of digital things?
Oh yeah, I did. Well, honestly, the physical perks are the ones I'm still fulfilling. I am still, literally, I have postcards that I am signing from agreeing to do, one of the most popular perks was a postcard from the road, which were $10 and like, you know, participation, blah, blah, blah.
You can see it. You can see the password.
I didn't type the whole thing.
What's the password?
I didn't type the whole thing.
Oh, I typed it totally wrong too. I read it incorrectly. So none of those characters are correct. Jack Conjugates, they're not hack Patreon.
Do not.
Suddenly $15 million is gone.
And it can all be traced back to this room. I'll very distractingly tell a story. But yeah, the physical perks, I was still filling. So right now, literally at VidCon, I have postcards I'm still signing and sending out because turns out like 10,000 postcards is a lot of postcards to send. Also while shooting 3 shows and blah, blah, blah. But the digital perks were the most fun to fulfill.
Right.
That was like doing Google Hangouts, doing personalized thank you videos, doing phone calls, and the people who were compelled to do like the 30-minute phone call were always interesting and motivating and inspiring to me people. Like that was so awesome. I don't know if you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like a word that's going to be weird, but it never is.
It never is.
Yeah.
It never is. In fact, I'm always like, wow, you're really doing something with your life, you know?
I thought it would be like, wow, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Who's this person who wants to pay me $1,000 to hang out? What have I done to deserve this? It didn't work. Windows 95.
That's okay.
I cannot believe, like, I'm sort of having a nostalgic moment here. Yeah, I got distracted. So I'm sure that I'm sure that there are interesting things being discussed in the panel, but I haven't been paying any attention. Okay. Yeah, go.
Well, I think we talked about this once briefly, and this is kind of like, and I mentioned this on the other panel that we were on in the industry discussion, but not everybody gets to live their creative dream and make a living off of it, make a good living off of it, and have that experience. But what participating in a crowdfunding campaign does is it kind of makes you a member of a cool club. And recently at the last volunteer day we started launching these Have a Heart Day membership cards. So everybody that participated in the volunteer day got to take a membership card that had like a little sweet message on it, and they can keep it in their wallet. And they'll be like, I'm making this thing possible. While I might not be able to spend all day, every day pursuing, again, like your creative dream, I can participate in this, and thus I am still like adding to it. You know? Everybody needs membership cards, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I just need a card for everything that I believe in.
Exactly.
I just like can't sit down, the wallet's so big. So it's easy for like, so I feel like in order to crowdfund, you sort of have to convince people that you're important in some way. And that can be difficult. Like,
I don't know that I agree.
But no, people believe that what you do is important.
What you do can be important, but
no, not you. Yeah. the thing that you're funding, and that I think is like the biggest challenge, and that's sort of like how to think about it instead of thinking like how do I make the coolest product, how do I make the thing that people are gonna want to have. It's like how do I make people believe that this thing is necessary for the world, that this thing is important, that this is that you're a part of something bigger, or there's like lots of different ways to be important and like to feel important to a community of people.
Well, I think people are motivated by several things. One of which is things that cause some form of emotion in them, right? And so I think with Smarter Every Day, what I did when I first launched the whatever campaign you're going to call this, I waited until the very end of a 9-minute video, which is eternity in YouTube time, right? So the only people that watch to the end of that 9-minute video are people that really enjoy my content, really enjoy it. So those are the people that are all in anyway. And so I don't think it's that, I don't know, it's like once you feel like what you've just experienced was awesome and you want other people to do it, or you want to continue that awesomeness or whatever it is, if your projects are awesome, then people are more likely to, pony up and participate. And so that's something that I thought was pretty amazing. It's the response I got the first time I did something like this. And it's really changed my life. And I think people, I'll just tell you my story real quick. I'll tell you my story?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us your
Story time.
Story time.
Okay, so I work a 40-hour week, and I make YouTube videos at night. And my cute little wife over here that told me not to point at her. Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't gone to sleep at the same time as her in like 4 years. Well, that's not true, but most of the time I go to bed at like 1, 2 a.m. because I'm making videos. And so what this has allowed me to do is get a buddy of mine to like give me an 80% edit on the videos, which means I have gone to sleep at the same time as you consistently for about 3 months, which is awesome. I know. So I'm figuring out how to communicate this on a video, but it's actually made my marriage better. Which is is this true or false? It's actually, I just like pointing out my wife because she's uncomfortable with it. Yeah. My marriage is now bad.
Just wrecked it.
And it's also made me a better father. And the people that would take the time to click and say, please send me a postcard, I've learned that it's not really the postcard. They want you to succeed, and I feel like people want me to succeed. And they're trying to figure out how to help me do that. And so, and I don't know, they want me to be able to do what I do and feel good about it. Go for it, Jack.
Could you tell that I was about
Yeah,
to
I can
have
tell.
mine?
I can see the body language.
Well,
there.
no, I was just going to, one thing that you said there, has everybody seen Amanda Palmer's TED Talk on yeah, so.
Has everybody seen Amanda Palmer's TED Talk?
Yeah.
Come on. Please.
So, one thing that she talks about is these reward tiers, and the things that we get. There's really two ways to kind of approach that. One is from a pre-order viewpoint and standpoint, which is, I want that and that and that, and I will pay this price for those things. And then the other way to think of it is, well, she says that those things are symbolic, really, of support, of what you were talking about, Destin, which is, I like you, I like what you do, I want to help you make more, and so I'm going to pay you, and I don't know what I'm getting for $40, but that's what I want to pay you. And so, that makes a big difference, because I think once you kind of are aware of that, it's not that you don't have to give things back, it's just that, one of Amanda's friends evidently launched a Kickstarter campaign where the reward tiers were, for $10, you get something cool, and for $20, you get something cooler. And for $50, it's going to be awesome. For $100, whoa, you are rad. And this was his Kickstarter campaign, and he reached his goal in a day, and blah blah blah. And there was no stuff, right? There was no pre-order. It really, there is a component of it that is just altruism and just wanting to help someone make beautiful things. And it's important that I think we all recognize that and realize that, you don't have to go broke fulfilling a Kickstarter campaign,
You really do have Patreon, don't you? That was beautiful.
No, wait, I'm sorry. That sounded like very anti-Kickstarter.
No.
I love Kickstarter, okay.
It did not at all sound anti-Kickstarter. I was actually saying that your
Charisma.
Yeah, your charisma and the altruism.
Why, thank you.
Yeah. I want to ask a very, very specific question. Do you guys think it's better to talk about something towards the beginning of the video or towards the end? Because like you were saying with that 9-minute video, only talking about the end, you're like, I'm talking to the dedicated few who really so substantially enjoy my content that they are stuck with me till this moment. I just wonder about that though, because when you're producing so much regular content, I don't think that everybody's going to catch everything I say in every video.
Sure. And
so I always debate really like how long or how interesting or what am I leading up to till this moment to be like, anyway guys, also I want to start this big new project, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, if the big new project is so important to me, can't I make an entire video dedicated to it? As opposed to just plugging it at the end? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'd love feedback or, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I thought about how I did that, and it was, so I've made a lot of videos in the last several years, and I found that when I made the one that's asking for money, that was the most nervous I've ever been on a video, and I shot that several times. And I'm saying, what's happening? This is strange. Why do I feel this way? And so I think it was like an effort to try to show humility, to say, I don't want to put it all out there. And I think that was just something I'm going to have to get over myself. But I agree. I've watched your videos, and every time I watch them, I'm like, totally. Yeah, this makes perfect sense. Why would this not be the whole video? And it is, and it's great. It's awesome. So I agree.
In this thumbnail, title-driven world, I think you select out people who aren't ever going to, donate by saying up front, like, hey, this is what we're doing, right? And by putting it on something like Patreon or, in our case, we did with the Gap, we did with Kickstarter. It was like that was the signal, and if people were like, hey, I'm not into this, then they're not going to watch it, they're not going to contribute to it, unless they really want to troll us in the comments.
Although, Hannah, I have to say, I watch your Indiegogo video just for fun. I watch it like I watch funny videos on the internet. It's like
that was a really fun. That was just such an incredible moment and such an incredible experience. And I think I wish that I had known more about what I was like getting myself into. And I'm always, going to be like reflective and critical of stuff like that. But that video and that day, I mean, it was insane. I don't know, for those of you that don't know, I launched a campaign asking for $50,000 to go to 10 cities. And by the end of 5 hours upon launch, it made $50,000. And by the end of the first day, it made $100,000. And even thinking about it now, it actually kind of chokes me up because it was just such faith that not only could they give me their money, that I would do something with it, like something good, like that's such blind trust. And it was incredible. And people like look at your audiences, and at the time I had maybe 300,000 subscribers or 400,000 subscribers, and only, I guess 10 to 12,000 actually donated. But those 10 to 12,000, I'm like, we're in it to win it, guys. Like, I want to be with you guys forever. Yeah, exactly.
So, while Hannah is composing herself, I'm curious, do we think that this is like a legitimate model for the next, for like a significant portion of the next generation of content? Like, of course, there will still be people funding things through traditional funding production. I don't know how it works. Maybe probably does, but I have no idea. But is this something that I don't think it's a fad. I think that we've proved that, though it's only been, 5 years that crowdfunding has existed.
5,000 years.
Sorry. So is this a viable model? Is this something where in the future we're going to see a significant portion, maybe not of dollars in the ecosystem, but of creators in the ecosystem, because that's the more interesting metric to me.
For Frederator, we would really like to make our fans investors in the project. I mean, as I was thinking about my statement earlier about how we ask for money all the time, people think of Frederator as a big money pit, right? Like we just have tons of money that we roll around in because we've had successes with Fairly Odd Parents and Adventure Time, which is not true because we make really expensive content. We're not poorly, right? But it's very expensive to do what we need to do. And so, but as we look at how we're going to fund these things, there's traditional models of how things happen. And actually, I think that part of this pressure to crowdfund is because online video is still immature, right? You couldn't go to investors and say, hey, invest my, I mean, you probably have, but the model is not definite. CPMs, the ad rates, and all that stuff is all kind of working itself out, and there's a real possibility that in a couple of years we'll have a slightly different conversation about it. The other side of it is, currently in the United States, the regulatory environment, it means that I can't go to Hannah and say, hey, invest in this little company, in this startup that we have, and there's a lot of rules about that.
This is a crazy rule that I discovered that I think is literally insane and super creepy, but you can't invest in the way that rich people invest unless you are literally rich. You have to have a net worth of over $1 million or an income of over $250,000 a year or something.
It's $250,000, but yes, it's the idea of an accredited investor.
Yeah,
but
I'm just like, fuck you.
But there is pressure to change that, right? And there was a reason why it happened. Because people, 200 years ago, it's invest in the Suez Canal. We're going to make all this money, right? there's reasons why they have those protections, but there are pressures mostly from the tech world where, you know, everyone wants to invest in the next startup, blah, 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 and we're watching those things very closely. We're super interested in how that can happen. But I think that there's another part. Our fans want to contribute. You know, we talked about this earlier. You know, there's a lot of fans who say, I'm throwing money at the screen, take all my money.
Take my money.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're happy to provide plush dolls and stuff in return for money, but we'll take money too. That's awesome, but we would love to give a return, other than the warm feeling, which is actually, I think, very valuable. One of our biggest Kickstarter contributor is a serial backer, right? Yeah. He gave us $10,000. And as we were talking with our little community of Kickstarter people, it turns out that he has backed, at that point he'd backed 130 projects on Kickstarter, and he was the biggest backer on the Homestuck video game Kickstarter. He was like, we don't understand who he is because he won't tell us. I know his name, I can Google him, but it doesn't give us any, like, who sits around and literally throws 5 figures at these things.
As if money doesn't matter.
He's having a lot of fun, right? Yeah. If he is a he.
Yeah.
Because his username wasn't that way, but I think his real name is. But you know, you never know.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. But it was fascinating that that's what he is. He's a serial backer. He just loves it.
You know, it's interesting. Like as we enter this time, like with something like Patreon or with like what you're talking about, which is that people, you know, want to throw money at you and invest and that sort of thing. I mean, investment is really separate, but I'm just going to put a big old pin in that for now. My hesitation as an independent creator is feeling like, for those who, when they invest or when they support or when they help fund something, a sense of ownership or entitlement to dictate how the content turns out. Like you even see it in popular TV shows. Like if, you know, the fandom has created like a pairing in their head. Like this even happened with the 3rd season of Sherlock, guys. Like they'll start pandering to the fans and they'll start like altering like the actual like creative thread of the content because they're like, well, fans like this and fans give us money, so let's do what they want. And then inevitably it suffers. Like it just gets less good.
But it sounds like politics.
I think that already exists, right? Like you put up a video and they don't like it, and you're like, well, I'm never doing that.
No, that's not me. That's not how I am.
You never do that, right?
I get so stubborn. I'm like, that was great.
But you know, and we talk about this with the patronage model from both Subbable and Patreon, is that there is this feeling like I got to give them exactly what they want, and then you're not iterating for success necessarily. Like there's a tension there that you have to navigate. You know, you might call it artistic integrity or whatever. But if all of a sudden you can't pay your light bill because you're doing this thing that you believe in this way, for whatever reason.
I have to say though, that's not like a phenomenon that we've observed on Patreon. I mean, from the inside, that's not even been something we've seen like empirically or observationally. I mean, most of the time, I think the viewers that become patrons are people who believe in the grander vision of the creator more than each individual thing, right? If someone wants to give you a tip for that thing because I really like that thing, they can do that.
Right.
That's not what Patreon and Subbable are, right? Patreon and Subbable are, wow, the whole picture, the whole thing that you guys are doing, I believe in you as an organization, as creatives who are putting things in the world, and I'm gonna fund that mechanism, right? It's more of a funding of a process than it is of an individual work.
But what if they don't understand the decisions you have to make to like keep going on your long con, to like keep going on your process? Like for instance, like I used to be really, and I am still, like I'm pretty picky about the people like I do like collaborative videos with, but obviously YouTube is a space where those who like garner more attention and like have more like control over the SEO do a lot of collabs. It doesn't matter, we're just gonna collab. So I've had to like kind of compromise on that a little bit and like move forward that way. And I worry that if it was a decision I was making to run the channel or to run the business because of elements that aren't romantic and aren't interesting and aren't, you know, relevant to the fans. Like
I would rather be affected by the fans giving me money than by like making sure I'm making content that advertisers will approve of
or investors.
Oh yeah, ultimately for sure. But I'm just talking about like to grow your business. Let's say like you have a goal that's at the end of the year, and throughout the course of that year, and it has nothing to do with money. You know, like breaking 1 million subscribers, right? Let's say you have that goal, and if you're being supported through your fans, and you start doing collabs with a bunch of people so you can get more subscribers. You can, you know, just like I said, like it's a bigger aim. I don't know. It's just, it's hard. I mean, I'm really leaning towards it right now.
I think that the monthly or the video per video save the patronage model is actually pretty young, and we have yet to watch out that whole cycle, right? Because people's brand, you know, like all these things have half-lives. You know, there's no video. I mean, what's the longest going TV series currently? I mean, there's no.
The Simpsons.
It eventually rolls out, and then people will lose interest, and they're going to be like, oh, that may occur in charge. And I haven't been watching them for whatever reason for a long time. We're going to see how that plays out, but you know, there's always that tension. We're just trying to figure out. We have one creator in our network who made a series of 4 very, very popular videos, and his fans really, really want more of that. He has one more in his head of that one, and he's holding it in reserve. And they just kind of like, you know, we love this, we want more of that. Actually, we love it too. We go to him like, we will give you money to keep making these because they're amazing. And he just like, creatively, he's only got one more, you know?
But I think that's like one type of creator, you know, there's the other type of creator, like, you know, Vlogbrothers or SciShow, or, you know, it's more about this seemingly bottomless set of ideas and videos that can kind of keep going. I mean, it feels a little bit more like programming, I suppose, or it feels like there's a long idea that can keep going, and I think that's the kind of thing that's going to work well with, you know, with monthly subscriptions, as opposed to, you know, like for instance, if you made a viral video, don't sign up for Patreon. Like that's not, you know, that's not what Subbable is for. It's not what Patreon is for. And the reason I think that it will continue to exist as a model. I mean, the reason I think creator-focused organizations like Subbable and like Patreon will exist is because the rest of Silicon Valley is so consumer-focused. They're so focused on building billion-dollar businesses that are going to reach hundreds of millions of consumers, that what they do as an entity, Silicon Valley as an entity, drives down the price of digital media, so it's cheaper for you guys. So it's easier to access for people, and so you don't have to spend anything. And the people that get hurt in the process are the artists, because the publishers have these massive deals, right, with the companies. There's a lot of work that gets done on the back end legally, and digital media, the price goes down, and artists eat that. And so that's the phenomenon that's happening right now. There's just going to be a lot of room for creator-focused companies like Subbable and Patreon to come in and make sure that artists are getting paid in that horrible thing that's happening where the price of media just dies.
I wanted to talk about the monthly model, because that's what made me make the jump. Because I'm an engineer, and you know, I look at graphs a lot. And so I was looking at your Indie Shoujo campaign, and I was looking at it, and you know, I noticed, you know, you had this big spike and then the tail off, and I was thinking, so we support a little girl in Africa, and we've been supporting her since 2004, and we don't even think about it anymore. We just know that Zodwa Treasure is going to do, you know, she's going to get what the Sandlings are going to give her, right? And we just remember that there's this awesome little girl, and we're supporting that, and that makes us feel good, right? Well, that's kind of what I think people are doing with the monthly model. Like they'll start and they say, I can handle $5 a month, and they'll start, and then they say, that artist is doing things that I love. I'm just going to keep supporting him, and it feels good. But so as you know, when you ran your campaign, it spiked and then it tailed off. How did you deal with that? Or you're dealing with it now, right?
Yeah, I mean, crippling financial debt. Let's get crazy. Well, here, we'll just, because it's like, well, sir. How did I deal with the spike in the tail off? In the haze of sheer joy for all the money that was being raised.
So was it a happy face, and then as it came down, it just...
It was a continually happy face. I mean, the tail off, you know, it's just like the novelty of, hey, I just launched a campaign wore off, right? So then it's just like, people, I feel like this was everybody that was going to donate because they already knew about myself and like Harto and My Drunk Kitchen. And then this was all people who were new. Like hadn't really heard about the project deck or had found it through a different website, like a BuzzFeed or like a Huffington Post, and we're like, oh, that's cool, I'll donate. You know, like I donate to campaigns all the time that aren't people that I'm like a dedicated, you know, like Solar Roadways. I don't know them, but man, that's a great idea.
I think it's actually freaking solar.
It's Solar Frickin' Roadways.
Solar Frickin'
Solar Frickin' Roadways. But sorry, you said something about monthly that I thought was really interesting, and I wanted to pose this question really quick. If you are already donating $5 a month to someone, when they come out with something like a book, are you still compelled to buy that book, or are you still compelled to like participate in
You're
that?
more likely to buy the book.
Totally. Right.
Really?
Yeah, because you're invested.
Yeah, you feel like you're part of the thing. You feel like you're part of the reason that book even existed in the first place. People are all nodding out there too.
Okay, cool. Cool, great to know.
Super. Just very, very specific example about that exact question. One of our web comics who's doing Patreon is named Zach Wienersmith. He makes a comic called Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal. He's doing it's a walrus?
No, it's a foghorn.
Right.
Yes.
I
think it sounds exactly like a foghorn.
That's pretty cool. So he's doing a Patreon campaign. He's making, I think, $8,500 per month through Patreon. He just launched a Kickstarter campaign for his book, and he made $348,000, and he still has like 7 days to go. So no, I think they're complementary, and I think it's one of those things that's like counterintuitive. You would think, oh, the Patreon campaign is going to eat a bite out of my Kickstarter campaign, but it's precisely the opposite. I mean, it's the kind of thing that people are more encouraged to participate. And with Kickstarter, they're getting a book, and with Patreon, they're getting the Google Hangout and the feeling of support on a monthly basis. And feeling like they're
There's actually a word for it. It's called the Ben Franklin effect. The idea that
Those 3 words. Dude.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
You're good.
I can't grammar.
You're getting smarter every day.
If someone asked, if Ben Franklin did this, if he had a political enemy, obviously this is not about friends and enemies, but he would ask them for a favor, knowing that in the future they would be more likely to do him a favor again.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So people want to help, especially if they've already helped.
Yeah, we noticed this the first time. I thought that we were going to alienate a bunch of Nerdfighteria when we did the Project for Awesome, and we were like talking about charities and stuff, and we were like, oh well, we're gonna convert some of our value into good in the world, and all it did was like make us way more popular. And I was like, well, raising money for charity is good for business.
But before we leave this topic, thank you. Before we leave this topic real quick, like, you brought up his self-publishing a book via Kickstarter, but, then that raises a lot of money, and that's awesome and great, and you're giving it directly to people that already know you exist. Like, kind of the place where I'm at right now is like the reason I chose to publish a book like within the set book publishing industry was to expand awareness and get to like the people that live in America that maybe could benefit from being a part of like the Harto community and like the reckless optimism and all the good feelings, but simply just don't know about it.
Right. No. Yeah. There is certainly a model for traditional media in all of this. Like they have different styles of marketing. They reach different consumers. Like when John did the Fault in Our Stars tour, I was like, oh yeah, people exist who are over 35. Like they're out there. They are still human beings. I have not thought about them in 4 years.
Wow, that's so embarrassing.
Talking about the book, so like that's what I mean when it's like I'm not crowdfunding a book. Like it's going to be in stores. So it's like if I had people that were giving me $5 a month, they're like, well, she doesn't need money. Like, but then again, the book is great, so you should buy it. It's
really great.
It's really great.
So back to the monthly idea. Quick statement. One thing that it did for me in my life is it provided stability. Because if you have just one big splurge of money,
you got to do a Kickstarter every year, and you're like, I don't know, people don't feel like that's the thing that Kickstarter's for, because it's called Kickstarter. It's for kickstarting things, not for sustaining things.
Or independent JoJoing.
What's the difference between an HBO subscription subscription, which no person under 25 ever, does, and a patronage model, like we're talking about.
The only difference is that it's established. Like that, you're right. You're
Well,
correct.
personal connection. I think that's a big deal.
I actually think that in the case of HBO, many people are being completely exploited by their cable networks to have to, pay however much money for basic cable, and then to add on their HBO for just that HBO. And so actually that personal connection is really important to them. They believe that HBO is the source of ongoing content that they're willing to subscribe to.
Yeah, but because I've thought about this before, like let's say with HBO, if I was like, HBO had it so that you could pay to only watch Game of Thrones, you know? Like, I think that, yeah, it sounds really good, but, and this, I'm gonna sound kind of like counterintuitive here, but like, I like the still like spontaneous or like the serendipity of like, surfing through channels or scrolling through HBO, because I don't know, I'm not so obsessed with HBO that I know every project they're launching. I do, know I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones every year, but if they're coming out with something new, I'm gonna see it, on there. So that in that way, I'm happy to pay for HBO because they make good
For access
stuff.
to browse the library.
Exactly.
And have those serendipitous
Organic discovery.
Yeah, remember that?
I know we're having a really great conversation and I want to keep happening, but I also want people to get a chance to ask some questions. I also want to say, harkening back to a previous conversation, that the video that you make asking for something, whether it's someone to buy your t-shirt or donate to charity or participate in the crowdfunding campaign, should be just as good, if not better, than your normal content. Like, don't make it like a apology video. Make it a great video. The CGP Graves subbable video that he did is just like, you watch it and you're like, that's just a great CGP Grey video, and at the end of it, like, you were like, now I understand why I need to do this, which is why he raised a lot of money in this next.
Can I, sorry, before we do question, I was wrong, just correction, because I feel like I need to say so. It wasn't $350,000, it was $300,000, and he has 4 days to go, but that's still pretty good.
That's a very good.
I just didn't want to, people to be like, oh, he lied.
With the Kickstarter, the way the model works, the next 4 days, he might get 350, right?
Yeah, totally.
You wouldn't be that wrong.
You have a question?
I do have a question. For things where you get more money than your goal by like a lot, do you feel like they need to up the ante to use that money, or?
That is a great question that I was actually going to ask the panel, so I'm glad you asked it. The other component of that is it okay to just make a bunch of money off of a crowdfunding campaign? Just like become rich.
It's a really important component of every Kickstarter. Right, like corporate vacations to Hawaii. It's like, put it down, that's where our retreat is. Right? No, like in our Big Puppy Cat campaign, the promise, like we worked out the model, and for, we wanted to hit a certain amount for a certain number of episodes, and for every additional amount, we just did more episodes. Right?
I encourage people to not do that. I encourage people to be like, this is what I'm going to do, and if people want to keep paying you, then like make some money and like pay your car payments and like your student loans and be like, hey, well, and like if you're not in a situation where that's not the part of your life, but like I worry about people who like are starving artists who are like, well, they're giving me all this money, I need to make sure that I deserve it. And I'm like, well, you deserve it by eating and not defaulting on your student loans.
Well,
And continuing
in
to
cases
be
that they actually
able.
undervalued that initial ask, right?
Yeah.
And I think our circumstances are very different. We were trying to appeal right to Be a Puppy Cat fans for this particular project. So
You also, though, you can bite off more than you can chew, and I think it's good to do baby steps. So I would have to agree with Hank. Not that you should become a millionaire on a crowdfunding campaign, but if the original plan was for a CD and you know how to make a CD, or maybe you've never made one, but you've made songs and you feel like you can make a CD, it's like, okay, do a CD. And then if you make like $150,000 instead of $25,000, like, don't promise like an app and hire an engineering team. Because then you're like, oh,
I made an app.
I'm sorry.
I really did.
Want a good app?
It was very nice, but it's just there's so many things happening at once. What we need is a crowdfunding support group called Don't Bite Off More Than You Can Chew, How Not to Choke in Your First Week.
Just go ahead and give him his Patreon card back.
I know.
But you know what I mean? Like you can just you can bury yourself. Like scales. It's even a thing with a company. Like you have like when investors give you money, they're like, okay, so like scale slowly. You know, like
that is so true, and that is so the opposite of people who want to make money off of you. When people want to make money off of you and capitalize on your engagement or capitalize on your community that you built, they just want you to move as quickly as possible and do a million things at once and just literally just shill constantly. And it's so strange, like, as our community grows, to see the people that are like, cool, yeah, I'm just gonna do like, 15 things right now and like just advertise for them all the time. It's like, what are you making? Like, where's your content? Like, what's happening? And like, it's okay to go slowly, like.
It's better to go slowly.
It is, like, if an opportunity
You'll
is.
also be a happier person.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like when we talk to kids, and I'll stop talking so you guys can answer the question. Fleeting opportunities aren't necessarily a good one. Lasting opportunities are. Okay.
Yeah. If somebody says to you, you have to make this decision now, say no. That's 100% a no. Yes, black hair.
I work with a company called Louder, which has a lot of crowdfunded artists license and sell cover songs. And I'm curious about whether you think that there's a certain amount of crowdfunding exhaustion that sets in that for a while, where all of your friends have a Kickstarter, all of your friends are constantly, I'm just curious as to how you feel that's evolved over time. If that comes in waves or...
I have a very specific.
What a surprise.
Yeah. So that like crowdfunding fatigue, I think is the phenomenon that you're talking about. And I think that's like definitely true for what I would consider to be like friends and family campaigns, which is like, okay, like I'm gonna help out a buddy and secretly I kind of hope it doesn't tip and I don't have to put in the money, but there's this, that's like that's a very different emotion and a very different feeling. That's a social obligation that stems from like, oh, I funded your campaign. It's like that kind of thing. That's very different than like someone who has fans who like really want to help you and really want to pay and like they just want you to make more things. So I think, yes, like crowdfunding fatigue, I think we will definitely see more of that for like friends and family style campaigns. But if it's a genuine audience,
Community.
Yeah, community. No, I don't think we're going to see that.
There's also a broader socioeconomic thing, which is kind of gross to talk about. But if the American economy continues to do what it's done for the last 100 years, there will just be a ton of rich people that don't have a lot of purpose in their lives.
Actually, you bring up an interesting point. I contacted my top donor and I asked him why he donated, and he said that he wanted a sense of community and he didn't give away enough money last year. Those were the two reasons.
Membership cards.
And like, I guess I shouldn't have said it quite like that. It's not that they don't like. It's just that like if you.
No, it's like
there's just a lot of value in America, and I'm always really surprised when we get like $50 a month through Super Bowl, and I'm like, who's getting $50 a month? That's great. And then I'm like, well, somebody who's worth more than $10 million. Like there are lots of people out there who just have a ton of money, and they want to make the world better. It's like there's like almost a sense that rich people are bad because they're rich. But not if they are making the world better with their money. Like there's a true effectiveness of wealth that makes things like lubricates.
Makes jobs.
Well, they're job creators.
In a real sense, in a global sense, everybody in this room who afforded to come to VidCon is a wealthy person.
Right. Yeah.
And these things that we do, we're all engaged in making stuff that is meaningful. Obviously, right? We're making stuff that people want. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the means to be here to do these things. And they give meaning to people's lives. And we live in a consumer-rich environment. I think that we're always, unless things dramatically change, zombie apocalypse, we're all going to be like throwing our money at lots of things all the time for the rest of our lives.
Not just Starbucks?
Which is a great, Starbucks is not just Starbucks, hopefully.
Yeah, I like to put everything in terms of cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It's a good time to announce my new company, Crowdfunding for Zombies. Say you're a zombie and you want to support the arts.
Yeah, you correct.
Oh,
I like your app.
it was a good app, right? It was. But here's the truth, right? Is that people that build and run apps have employees and companies that run the apps. And so it's like, the idea is that you can create all this stuff yourself and then still have, there are literally not enough hours in the day for me to do every single aspect of the thing. And so that's why it was great for a minute, because that's before I left for tour. And I was like, cool app launch. Oh man, shooting through, oh, the app. You know.
But question for Hank. Last year at VidCon, I made you that weird shirt with the Nepal thing.
Yeah.
And then people were like, where do I get that? And I was like, okay, sure. I'll sell it, whatever, for like a little bit. I didn't really do it. But I was using you to make money.
Hey, I sell shirts with Doctor Who and like Rapunzel.
It's true, but like,
Like,
the whole like Paul Dark Stars thing, like, are you gonna, like, the community's grown a lot because of that whole thing. So like, how are you using that for good, like exploiting that, or like the new growth, and using new fame? And like, does that feel like you're like exploiting certain things to get good?
I don't, like, yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm not, and I'm thank you for the shirt, by the way. I actually gave it away.
Confession.
Yeah, I gave it away as part of for awesomeness here. Yeah, but I did wear it a lot. And yeah, yeah. So you and like. I have a very strange way of thinking about content and copyright, and like the idea that like we should get mad at people for using the Tiffios clouds in their Etsy stores just makes me like.
Yeah. Like there's so many people that are like, that's my catchphrase, and somebody already put on a shirt. Shit, and I'm like, whatever. You also use music and images constantly that aren't yours.
Everything. Like, there's never been anything, like, the words that I'm using right now were created by a human being. And, I'm glad I don't have to pay.
So when I actually send an Etsy takedown notice on your being puppy cat, kick-a-rummy or whatever, like, don't hate me too much.
Okay, one more question. I'll just go with the guy who hasn't put his hand down, because I feel bad.
I'm that guy, sorry.
Yeah.
I think I've had really hard trouble finding advice on rewards. So when I set up my Patreon campaign, I screwed up because I couldn't conceive of somebody giving more than $10 a month. And I packed so much into that immediately people started giving 20, and people that I didn't know had started giving like 50. And I was just like, I both want to reward those people more, and I want to encourage other people to do that, because if they will, but I'm sort of, one, I'm sort of screwed, but two, advice for the future, like how do you prevent that?
Yeah, first of all, our bad, not yours. You didn't screw up. No, seriously, like you didn't screw up, we did, and we're working on that. Like, one thing we've been thinking about a lot recently, the whole team is working on it, is standardized rewards. Like, helping people get a sense of like what are things that people like. So aggregating all the data that we've gotten over the last 13 months and doing some studies to see, you know, what the key points are in terms of how much people are giving for what kinds of rewards, and then suggesting things to you when you sign up. So you sign up, and then instead of you having to kind of creatively poof rewards out of the air, we show you some options, some popular things. You get to see what other people are doing and how well it's working for each of them, and you get to click and pick. And then we would offer you basically software tools to fulfill those rewards and make them easy and scalable and digital and have it just all work. So that's like in the works, that's happening this year, and that, like, you know, early company. We're figuring things out, but it's going to be better. And if you want advice on what to do now, we've helped a lot of artists to like solve that exact problem. All the dudes in the orange shirts back there, that's Patreon. By the way, that's the Patreon team.
All right. Since we did it, this is the subbable team.
The Federator had the same question about rewards, like but in the classic Federator style, we hired a consultant. It was awesome. But that being said, there are people who are experts in crowdfunding and who understand the mechanics of those things. And in our case, it was a company called Bread Pig and a man named George Rohack who has done like so many Kickstarters for lots of different people. He's very approachable. And depending on the project, and it was a very modest, it was mostly contingent on success. So there are people, and increasingly in the last year, I've seen both Indiegogo and Kickstarter put out a lot more guidance. So you can, do your homework first before. We have some of our, we have this sprawling network of animation creators on YouTube, and some of them just like, oh my gosh, here's my Indiegogo campaign for $75,000, and they have 100 subscribers, and no one knows anything, and they, whatever. They just jump into it in this enthusiastic way, and then they wonder why it fails or why they make mistakes. You gotta take a second. It's a non-trivial thing, right?
Yeah, I feel like you have to earn the right to, this might be wrong, you have to kind of earn the right to run a crowdfunding campaign by being loyal to the community.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, especially with the subbable Patreon model, you end up like, that is really like, it's not designed for kickstarting, it's designed for an existing project, which makes it difficult to start the project. But like, we're creators, and like Destin said, we're a 40-hour week, and then just not go to sleep at the same time as your wife.
But I do now.
You won't for long.
Yeah, why don't you build an app, see how that goes?
Let me tell you about all the things you can do at once.
All right, this has been a really, really fascinating discussion. I really appreciate all of our panelists and all of you for coming out. This is what? Yeah.
If you guys, I'm just doing, for those of you who have more questions about this stuff, I'm literally going from here to my next thing as a Q&A, and I love talking about this stuff. So if anybody's interested, I'll be doing a Q&A immediately after this at 11 in room 304. 304!
You're going to tweet the carrot onesie, right?
Oh, I did. Ink looks great.
Please look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.